Take a look at the ketchup stains on this shirt. What do you think they look like? Spaghetti? Fried chicken? One of those seahorses that look like kelp? Wrong. These are actually the top 5 most gerrymandered districts in the US, with 2 of them being in Texas and one of them right here in San Antonio. I can guarantee you that no one in this room is satisfied with our government. Each of you could go on a 5-minute tirade about your criticisms, filling the air with a whole book of grievances, and our state and national Congress being filled with a bunch of crusty, dusty, archaically old white men who don't and won't represent your actual interests is no mere coincidence. This is my project, End Gerrymandering. To begin the video, let's start off with some definitions and context. Firstly, what exactly is gerrymandering? Gerrymandering is when legislators take advantage of their constitution given abilities to redraw electoral district lines in a way that is undemocratic, manipulating the boundaries to favor one political party rather than accurately represent the people. Both parties across the US are guilty of this, and as stated by Dr. Taylor, department chair of the Political Science and Geography Department here at UTSA, quote, "As a political scientist, gerrymandering has gotten worse in the last 40 years. Sounds horrible. How is this allowed under US law? Blame the Constitution. Article 1 of the US Constitution calls for census data to be taken every 10 years for the purposes of redistricting and reapportionment. This is because the congressional seats in the House of Representatives are based on a population formula, and said amount of seats in the House can't exceed 435. But as states grow bigger and get more House members, they take a larger ratio of the 435 House seats. And so as states' populations grow, they get more House members, and with more members, they get more districts per each member to represent. Vice versa if they shrink. Take, for example, our most recent census, in which California had to consolidate their districts due to their population decrease, while Texas had to make more districts thanks to their population increase. However, the issue lies here in that the US Constitution delegates this task as a legislative duty, meaning it is to be done by legislators, which is exactly how gerrymandering is allowed to occur. Because how can you expect a partisan person in a partisan position with partisan intentions to not do partisan things? It's literally in their job to be partisan. Perhaps at the time of writing, during the age of candlelit rooms and quote unquote washing your hands being controversial medical advice, legislators were perhaps the only people available who knew their home state well enough and were probably the most qualified people in the room to be cutting up their state. Quite frankly, though, we are past that era. Census data is public. Google is free, and redistricting boards in states that try to at least make it look like the states aren't gerrymandering already use advanced GIS maps to draw their lines. And while this excuse runs free, Black and brown voters see their voices essentially disenfranchised as legislators crack and or pack their communities to keep Congress the way they wanted and their voices silenced even further. Within the systems that we have now, there have been some attempts to keep gerrymandering at bay. However, these haven't worked. Some states like New Jersey and California have redistricting commissions composed of non-politicians, but those commissioners often have partisan intentions or are even appointed by a party itself. In 1962, the Supreme Court ruled in Baker v. Carr that gerrymandering allegations were justiciable or could be brought to trial in a court of law as they violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Then, in 1993, SCOTUS case Shaw v. Reno brought the decision that you couldn't redistrict a voting district for the sole reason of race. But even then, these rulings don't actually stop legislators from drawing and implementing these lines in the first place. Rather, it's up to the constituents themselves to bring these new district lines to court and, you guessed it, pay for litigation out of their own pocket. So not only are you paying taxes, but you have to pay even more money for an allegedly democratic government to actually be democratic. Something as simple as democracy shouldn't have to be behind a paywall, let alone denied to you because of your race. We need to change the system entirely. We need to end gerrymandering. And thus, we need to amend the US Constitution, the sole culprit of why this is allowed to happen, and take this power out of legislators' hands. Instead, redistricting and reapportionment should be designated to the US Census Bureau, taken on by a large committee of non-politicians dedicated to work on their home state. Each committee member will be scanned for their political affiliations, going as far as social media posts and essays written in college. They already do that for SCOTUS judges anyways, to make sure the committee is not completely nonpartisan, but bipartisan. I mean, you can't have a human being without opinions. They'll do the drawing instead, making sure district lines are sensible, provide accurate representations of the people, and not look like those ketchup stains from earlier. Being implemented through the national scale, all states will be forced to give up gerrymandering, rather than doing so on their own discretion, like how it is in the status quo. Sign this petition here to tell the U.S. House of Representatives to propose this amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Thank you for your support.